Hello, fellow debaters and honorable judges. Let's imagine your neighbor and you have been feuding for a long, long time. In fact, it goes back to a fight you and he had a while back. Now, what if I told you that I found a way to make him really angry again? Would you like the extra tension? Do you want to invite him to another fight? Or do you want to enjoy your peace? On the pro side, we believe peace is the better path. Resolved. The South Korean government should ban sending of propaganda balloons to North Korea. And the definitions are, the South Korean government is the official government stance of the Republic of Korea. To ban is to not allow, and propaganda balloons are helium-filled balloons with attached propaganda intended for North Korea. And we're debating this because the issue of propaganda balloons has received increased attention over the past year. And today we value the safety and the life of North and South Korean citizens. And the three arguments we have are civilian harms, provocation, and democracy. So the first point I have about civilian harms is that this balloon project endangers civilians along the border. Sending balloons might seem peaceful, and I get how that might seem okay for now. But then when I read the news and see that gunfire had been exchanged along the borders, I wonder why the opposition wants to put civilians at risk. It is because analyst Chung Sung-chang stated, the Korea's first exchange of gunfire came after North Korea opened fire at balloons carrying anti-Pyongyang leaflets that are floating across the border from the south. Ladies and gentlemen, banning is a preventive measure to ensure the safety of our citizens, which is true. And as the evidence shows, because there is a high possibility of danger, thanks to the propaganda balloons, we are putting the citizens' safety first. And now the second point I have about civilian harms is that North Korean civilians are put at risk. When North Korea is arresting people for having foreign propaganda, it means that by sending in such propaganda, we bring unsuspecting civilians an air delivery of a path to imprisonment. The opposition may believe it is safe and the activists are just trying to empower them, but it's really just the same as giving them a death sentence. It is because it is proved that possession of unapproved films is a crime punishable by death. And do you want people punished like that? Try helping, not harming. And now the first point I have about my second argument, provocation, is that it agitates North Korea. It is because the Kim regime has publicly announced that it is agitated by the sending of propaganda balloons. And if we want peace, why would we commit to an action that guarantees the opposite? And it is true that North Korea has been aggressive before and has done many damages to our country, such as the Roks, Cheonan sinking, and the bombardment of Yongbyon. This shows that North Korea is motivated very quickly to do such acts, so we the prop is just being careful. And now the second point I have about provocation is that this policy is counterproductive. It's because North Korea has recently made overtures towards peace, and the South Korean government has also announced its openness to official talks as well. Jeopardizing peace talks is not in anyone's interest. And who knows, North Korea could turn our propaganda against us and make it just another motivation to say we are actually the liars. And now the first point I have about democracy is that this policy lacks public support. It's because my opponents don't care if the majority of South Korean society does not want to send the balloons, but we say that's wrong. Precisely 62.9% of the South Koreans don't want this propaganda, and they must have a reason, right? And also, evidence shows that Kwon Soon-an, a resident of northernmost project, stated, things like this will trigger artillery firing at us. Safety is top priority because it is our lives that are hanging in the balance. As this shows, safety is the main issue here between the citizens and their opinion towards propaganda balloons. This is why our value matters. And the second point I have about democracy is that opportunity cost is wasted. In addition to all of the harms from balloon propaganda, we must also consider the time and money spent on this failed effort. We could focus on more effective pursuits such as negotiation. And in conclusion, our team proved to you that peace is better than the mire offered by the con of civilian harms, provocation, and the ignoring of democracy. What Khan should do to win is explain why half-hearted and wasteful aggression is good. Thank you.
Hello, we are on the con side of the resolution. The South Korean government should ban sending propaganda balloons to North Korea. We will first define our resolution. The word propaganda in the propaganda balloons means information, ideas, or rumors deliberately spread widely to harm a person, group, movement, and such. We have two arguments to support this idea. Our first argument is that there will be too much trade-off for the people to ban. If we limit sending the propaganda balloons, then we limit the freedom of expression. Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says that everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. It will be the same with North Korea if they are limiting freedom. People come to get freedom from North Korea to South Korea. However, if you're limiting freedom in South Korea too, then there will be nothing different from the North Korea soon after. Our second point in this argument is that it will be seen as surrendering to North Korea's threats. They will continue threatening and we will just handing a barrier of asset to them. It gives North Korea an incentive reward so they will increase threats and attacks so they can get more concessions and aid and power. Our third point in our first argument is that banning means decreasing efforts to give human rights to North Korea's people. The human rights organization says that on the article of freedom of information and movement, they're giving no right to people and we should help them. And they are saying about the torture and inhuman treatment in North Korea. They are abusing the UN law and the people in North Korea doesn't even know about the human rights. Our second argument is that it will not work and banning will be empirically denied, meaning that the facts prove otherwise. According to the Telegraph at 2012, when the propaganda balloons were banned, the fighters for Free North Korea still released a lot of propaganda balloons. This proves that even when the governments are banning the propaganda balloons, they will still release them and have no effect. And it will be increasing people sending the propaganda balloons. It will release more cause of the forbidden fruit effect. Everyone wants what they can't have. People were still saying that they should send the propaganda balloons because it will motivate people in North Korea to get out of the North Korea and know the truth. According to the SBS, the Fighters for Free North Korea's leader, Park Sang-hwa, said that even when the government tries to ban it, we can't help but just spread the interview DVD more actively to the North Koreans. Our second point is that the dangerous messages are going to increase because of this forbidden fruit effect. Since the propaganda balloons are banned, there will be only left the angry activists who are willing to break the law and desperate to send the balloons. Because of this desperation and frustration, there will be more reckless and dangerous messages to send to North Korea, and it will be even more likely to cause a war than just banning the propaganda balloons. So we are saying that there's a fault with banning the propaganda balloons. Even when we ban the propaganda balloons, it will still cause attacks, so attacks are actually more probable if we ban the propaganda balloons. So Judge, what have I told you today? We have told you that the South Korean government should not ban sending the propaganda balloons to North Korea because first, there will be too much trade-off for the people to ban and it will limit the freedom of expression. Banning means it will be seen as surrendering to North Korea's threats, and banning means decreasing efforts to give human rights. Thank you.
So you guys said that.
Microphone.
Sorry. So if you guys know that the propaganda balloons will ruin the ties between the two countries, why do you have to send these balloons?
We are not saying that we should. We are saying that we should not. We should at least give the efforts to give the human rights to people, and then it will only increase the reckless messages of the angry activists when we are banning the propaganda balloons. So it will have more bad effects. Can we ask you a question?
Yes.
So when should the government limit the freedom of speech or expression?
It's when, as the Massachusetts general law states that if there's a disorderly conduct or danger, the government has the right to curtail the rights of the citizens. And now I'd like to ask you the question.
Yes.
How do you think agitating the government is the best situation to send these propaganda balloons?
I do not understand your question. Can you explain more?
Okay, so I'll repeat again. How do you think agitating the government of both sides is the best situation to send these balloons?
We don't think we are advocating the government. We think that when the propaganda balloons are banned, there will be more bad effects. So may I ask you a question? So you said that the government should ban the freedom of speech and the limit. Then if you have the limit, then how do you measure the harms of banning the propaganda balloons?
But however, there's also a harm when if we don't ban the balloons because, as we explained, there has been shootouts between in the borders. And how do you explain that as not harmful right now?
We agreed that there will be more bad effects.
No, we're saying that there are already bad effects, so we have to ban it right now because there's already bad effects right now.
However, in your argument, you said about they're preventing the negotiations. However, there are already peace talks, the high-level talks being in progress to be made.
But however, the propaganda balloons are the ones putting a stop to those peace talks right now because they're putting more strings to the ties of the Koreas. I would like to ask you a question.
Okay.
So, don't you think that we should support something that actually has a chance of working, not a propaganda balloon that also includes dangers?
What is their definition of dangerous? Because
as we explained before, there has been North Korea has been also unreasonable, and we have seen the bombardments of Yongpyong because of these Patriot missiles, and we're saying that North Korea could always do this again, so there is a possibility of harm.
So are you
Hello, fellow debaters and honorable judge. I am the second speaker of the pro team, and I will be rebutting to the three arguments that the con team has given us. And to their free expression point, I shall use my free expression to give you three levels of response. The con team said that, firstly, the con team said that the people come to get freedom to South Korea, but if we stop freedom, we can't be any different from North Korea. However, we are just limiting the right so that the North Korean activists and the balloons won't be able to harm other people, so we're not going to be the same as North Korea. And secondly, John Stuart Mill, the person who wrote the foundation of the concept of free speech in On Liberty, wrote, "The only purpose for which power can be rightfully exercised over any member of a civilized community against his will is to prevent harm to others. For example, you can't yell fire in a theater." And thirdly, contemporarily, Korea's National Security Act forbids any act that can cause harm to South Korea. These balloons would actually endanger the South. As our first speaker told you, the gunfire has been exchanged at the last balloon launch, and according to the Guardian.com, responding to the Paju launch, the North rejected the South's insistence that freedom of expression is enshrined in its national security law and accused Seoul of being hypocritical. This freedom of expression they speak of ensures that if anyone praises North Korea, they are wrongfully prosecuted for anti-state crimes and indiscriminate persecution and imprisonment. And now on to the second argument about continuous threats. The con team said that the North Korean activists are going to become more reckless if we ban these balloons. However, if we ban them, North Koreans will not be able to send the balloons since the people will be breaking the law. North Korean activists will not actually be able to get more reckless. And secondly, we are not talking about altering radio waves, but banning physical trash from being sent to North Korea. Would we like their trash sent here? And thirdly, we say that it is South Korea that is actually posing a continuation of threats by sending incendiary trash into North Korea, just as two Koreas are trying to hold peace summits. As reported in The Guardian, North Korea's official stance is speaking ill of and criticizing our highest leadership and system with evil bad-mouthing through these consistent cross-border leaflets is the gravest act of hostility that obstructs inter-Korean relations and peace and unity in the nation. And in South Korea, praising North Korea can be punished by up to 7 years in prison under the national security law. Having this national security law in the first place is a threat to rights also, which the opposition is claiming to be protecting right now. And to their last argument, which was the ineffective point, I have 4 levels of response. Firstly, it is an accurately labeled argument. This was a very ineffective argument they gave us. And secondly, public forum is an advocacy debate, not a policy debate. Looking at the ballot for this format, we can see neither the pro nor con is permitted to offer a plan or counterplan. We are not here to get into the specifics, but instead to argue whether we should ban or not how to ban or how not to ban, as they were talking about. And thirdly, if this argument could be countered for this debate, this is the nirvana fallacy. My opponents think that banning must solve all problems. It actually must not. To win this debate, we have proven that the concept of banning is much more better than the concept of not banning. So when we ban drunk driving, it doesn't stop but it slows, and just like speed limits, we can't watch every individual. So the banning of propaganda balloons are just like cameras that watch out for cars who pass the speed limit. We can't watch every single car individually, but at least we can try to catch the majority of those lawbreakers as we are trying to do right now. Just as those people, we shouldn't give up before we even try to stop something that is a threat to citizen safety. And fourthly, according to Hong Ik-pyo, there is only 10% that the balloons land in North Korea. Also, only 3 out of 7 of the propaganda balloons land in North Korea. Thank you.
May I use 30-second cut time?
You may.
Okay.
We believe we should not ban the propaganda balloons because it is violating the citizens' rights. First, we'll go and rebuttal our arguments, and then we'll refute their arguments. As a rebuttal for our arguments, our first argument was about there will be too much trade-off, and for our first point, which was about the freedom of expression, they said they are just limiting it. However, if the government starts to limit these freedom of expression, then the governments will be able to easily take out other rights too, which means there will be more percentage of limiting more rights, which will eventually take off the rights from the people. And for our second point, they talked about the national security is right now endangering the South Korean, and according to the Guardians, the Pajulant has already threatened the Paju citizens. However, the Paju citizens who are living there choose to live there and choose to get the money from the government, which means they choose that risk and their choice, and they should follow their risk, which is follow to their choice. And also, they also said the governments cannot watch all the propaganda balloons, and that's why it doesn't work. The ban will not work, and it will be wasting a tax instead of making it effective. And they also said this is not the parliamentary debate, so we should not talk about how to ban it. But we are not talking about how to ban it. We are saying that it is a waste of tax, so we should not ban the propaganda balloons instead of just banning it and wasting tax and having nothing effective. And also they said there are a small percentage of reaching to the North Korea. However, if we look at the world history, the Berlin Wall has been failed just because there are a lot of supports from the US governments and West German's governments, which was about things what they needed to live, and they thought these governments are actually supporting more than the East German government, which made them to collapse these walls and rebel against the governments. Like this, we can make same effort with this propaganda balloons too. It was also propaganda balloons what they made. So if one balloon goes through the DMZ, then it will have the same effect, making people able to get rebel. And also, they talked about for their arguments, they talked about the civilians' harms, and they said on the October 10th about the gunfire. But right now, from that point, it has been about 4 months. Until now, there was no negative repercussion, which means it is just an empty threat, since they had nothing threatened and happened till now. This proves that that is just an empty threat, and if we ban this, it will lead to appeasement instead of trading. And also, they said about, for their second argument, they talked about the provocation, and for the North, they said it is degrading the high-level talks. However, right now, the governments of South Korea had agreed with the talk, saying that there will be no strings attached, which means we don't need to ban it. We just can talk it there and solve all the problems in that talk. If you're banning it before, then there is no reason to ban it because we can solve it in the talk, and if you're banning before that, then it will lead to appeasement because the North Korean will think they were going to get what we want by just threatening it, and it will eventually lead to handling a great asset for them. And for their third argument, they talked about democracy. However, is the human rights more important? Yes. If they are limiting the freedom of expression, like what I said in the first rebuttal for our arguments, they will actually take out
a lot of human rights from the citizens, which will eventually lead destroying the democracy. Thank you.
Can I start? Why do you think that ignoring the majority of South Koreans and ignoring democracy is not a part of taking away rights? Don't you think that's hypocrisy?
We believe if we are limiting the rights just because of the democracy, then it is actually destroying the nation's value, and which leads to the destroying of the democracy. Then I'll ask you a question. Then, in your introduction, you talked about the safety is the main reason of this debate. Then, if we prove that ban is not hurting the safety and it is supporting the safety, do we win the debate?
What?
If we
The last part?
if we prove that the ban is not hurting the safety and it is actually irrelevant, or it is helping that, do we win this debate for that issue?
However, you can't prove that it's actually safe because, as our first speaker explained, the October shootout, that's a dangerous case. So, basically,
Actually, you didn't answer that question because we were asking about if we prove it, like if we can, then are we winning the debate or aren't we? And why?
however, as I just explained, you can't prove that it's safe.
So we just want to know about if we prove it, are we winning the debate about that issue? Not about we can't or we can't prove this.
What you need to prove is that explain why half-hearted and wasteful aggression is good.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
In your speech, you said that people can do what they want with their own money. However, they can't when there's actually a risk of involving other people. So how are you gonna explain that?
In which case, can you explain more about that?
So right now, the North Korean defectors are sending these balloons and risking other people's lives and that are not agreeing. So people can do what they want, yes, but they are not allowed to when there's a risk of killing other people.
And did the governments always ban when these are killing the people? Because if we look at Sewol Ferry, then we should ban also riding the boats because it is killing people.
However, that was just one situation, and given the case of drunk driving, as I explained in my speech,
Can you explain more about that?
drunk driving has a possibility of killing other people and is dangerous. So that's why the government has banned drunk driving.
Well, but the people who are dead because of the drunk driving is less than the people who died from the Sewol Ferry. So so aren't you saying that we should also ban riding these boats and traveling around with it?
Hello, fellow debaters and honorable judge again. Today I'm here again to discuss the two major clashes I found in today's debate. So the first clash I found was between the other team's argument of free expression and our argument and our argument of civilian harms. However, our assertion was more superior because, first of all, in the Massachusetts general laws, as I mentioned in the crossfire, when there is disorderly conduct, we can curtail the rights of the citizens because letting the propaganda balloon activity creates a big possibility that there is a danger involved. And also, I'll add more evidence to proving the opposition's argument wrong. And it shows in the First Amendment that additionally, speech that presents a clear and present danger may in some instances be unprotected by the First Amendment. And the danger we're talking about here is the danger created by these propaganda balloons. And this shows that the rights they talked about cannot be contributed to this debate anymore. And the second point I have is the second clash, and it was between our assertion of provocation and their argument of continuous threats. And as our second speaker explained, it is actually us who are the threats because we're actually the ones letting people speak badly about the North Koreans, and us who banish people who speak positively about North Koreans. And these acts are also threats we should talk about and is actually we should actually talk about, and not just the little threats North Korea is always giving to us but never activating. And also, our argument of provocation wins their argument because the threats that are happening in the first place is because North Koreans are provoked to make them, and in this case, the propaganda balloons are provoking them. And I'll finish my partner's crossfire about the boat, whether we should ban boats because they killed many people. But however, boats is an important transportation, but drunk driving is bad for all cases. Thank you.
We believe there were two main clashes in this debate. The first clash was about safety and freedom of expression. We won this clash because the freedom of expression is more important than the safety. If freedom of expression is not important, why such the safety is there? The safety is there to protect the people and its rights from the other dangers. So they're saying that the freedom of expression is more important because it needs to be protected. And also, if we take away the freedom of expression this time, then the government will be able to take away faster and more next time, leading to a lot of lives going to be taken to get this freedom of expression back. And there's the Korean history as an example about the Park Chung-hee president who has taken away the freedoms, and then the citizens has to sacrifice many lives and speeches to win this back. And our second clash is about threats and provoking North Korea or not. We believe that we are not provoking North Korea by sending the propaganda balloons. And they said about the threats being made and the attacks or war being happening. However, we have 5 reasons for not causing a war. How the probability of the war is low. First of all, there will be empty threats. The North Korea has been making empty threats over and over, and they will be just making empty threats again too. And second, the North Koreans doesn't want to die. They're not willing to take a war. They will lose eventually. And third, there we have no money to cause war. They're suffering of money loss and hunger. They're not be so willing to cause a war right now. May I finish what I say?
Quickly, one.
Okay. And fourth, they know that South Korea has more allies and can more crush the North Koreans. And fifth, the South Korea.
That's time there.
Thank you.
Do we start?
Yeah, Grand Crossfire, yeah.
So, can't we let North Korea just fall by itself like China right now? Because then we don't need to send these balloons and pressure them from the outside, so I do so.
So are you saying that if we are not sending propaganda balloons, then we are going to fail them? Like we are going to make them fall?
No, I'm not saying that. We don't need to pressure them from the outside to make them fall. They can fall by themselves inside, like China right now.
Then why aren't they falling right now? Their country is still existing, and if they're collapsing, then they should have already collapsed.
Collapsing doesn't take just a minimal amount of time. It takes process of years and years, but these propaganda balloons can also worsen the tie, so why should we send and not just let them fall by themselves?
Is there any proof for that?
What?
Is there any proof for that?
For what's that?
So, is there any proof that it is collapsing right now?
Well, yesterday in the news, North Korea's first big store opened up, and this shows that the citizens are having more economic freedom now. So they're going to progress slowly and slowly.
So are you saying that we should just abandon the North Korean citizens just because just sacrificing loss of lives to fall of the North Korean dictatorships?
We're not sacrificing all these people right now. We're just saying that the North Koreans should learn by themselves, not us pressuring from the outside and putting more pressure on our strains and themselves.
Then how can
We would
they?
like to ask a question.
Um, can you answer? Can you answer?
We would like that as your second question, but I would like to ask you first.
What you said about.
I said we would like that as your second question, but we would like to ask you first. Can we?
Okay.
So, our crossfires, you guys said that North Korea always makes empty threats, and we do too, like South Korea. So, are you calling our government untrustful right now?
No, we only said that North Korea has been making empty threats, and we never said anything of the South Korean government making empty threats.
Well, I heard in your speech that the rebuttal to our rebuttal that Korea is actually the threat. You said that, like North Korea, South Korea is also making these empty threats, so we don't need to listen to them.
Oh no, we said actually we said that North Koreans are making threats, just empty threats, because till now, from the points which your event said, which is about October 10th, there was about 4 months and there was no negative persecution, which means it was just an empty threat. We never said about the South Korean governments making empty threats to North Korea.
If you say so, then okay. So, do you want to ask a question?
Yes. What was your refutation for our second argument on the point that about the forbidden fruit of it?
Hello, fellow debaters and honorable judge again. I am here as the fourth speaker, and I will be pointing out the mistakes made by the con team. And their first mistake was that they misunderstood our rebuttal. They said that we said it was a parliamentary debate, and this shows their lack of understanding or their lack of focus. Since we said it was a public forum debate, not a parliamentary debate. And their second mistake was that they only rebutted to 3 points, not 6, and the ones that they didn't rebut to were the North Korean citizens will be harmed, that the balloons are counterproductive, and opportunity cost. So we will take it that they have agreed with those 3 points. And their third mistake was that they said in Crossfire, shouldn't we ban the boats since a lot of people died from accidents? However, as our first speaker said in her third speech, boats are important transportation. So this shows that they have a low understanding of what we're talking about, because we are saying that the balloons need to be banned as a precaution, such as an example of drunk driving. And their fourth mistake was that in their third speech, they said that North Korea will be scared. So this contradicted their own team, since they're saying that it will be counterproductive, which was one of our arguments that they didn't rebut to. Since the North Koreans are scared, they won't be able to have the courage to pick up the leaflets. This also proved that they were not paying attention to the debate and doesn't actually believe in what they were arguing for. And the fifth mistake that I found in this debate was from the con team was that also they kept repeating that the freedom of speech is protected at all times, but that is a point that we already made ineffective. So this proved that they actually had no proof that our proof is wrong, which shows that we were right and that they were wrong. And the last mistake that I found was that they didn't actually directly address our burden, which we mentioned 2 times, once in our first speaker speech and once in the Crossfire. Thank you.
May I start?
You may.
Okay. We believe we can restate this argument into one way, which was does the freedom of speech and human rights more important, or does the national security and their safety more important? But before telling the judges about this, we will talk about our mistakes, what they just told us about our mistakes, and actually for what they talked in their mistakes. The first one was about their refutation, which is about our second argument, talking about parliamentary debate. However, we already refuted with, we are not telling how to ban it. We are saying if we are banning this, then it is wasting. And also they said we didn't prove what our burden, but we already explained it in our refutation by saying it is waste of tax because it will not be that effective, and that also means we already explained this proof our burden, and so that since they said it was our burden, we win this debate. And also they said this debate is about the safety, and actually we prove that the safety is irrelevant from this topic, because the safety right now, just because of banning this, is making a lot of people's life going to be sacrificed. If you look at the Korean history, Park Chung-hee president and the Kim Yong-sam Chun Doo-hwan president had already tried to limit the freedom of rights, and because of these, a lot of people had sacrificed their lives just to get these lives back, and this had made a lot of people to sacrifice their lives. And for our clash, which was about does the human rights more important or the national security more important? We believe, like what we said in our mistakes, why it is wrong, why our mistakes are wrong. We believe it is wrong. We believe that human rights are more important because the human rights are actually sacrificing more life if we're limiting and taking these out. And according to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it says all the people should have rights to get these rights back. And so we believe that human rights are more important than the national security. Thank you.